My name is Georgia Witten, and I studied an undergraduate degree in molecular biology and genetics at UEA, and I currently now work as a genomic data scientist at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. So, non-traditional background is the fact that I was going through my undergraduate degree, being a carer for my grandma, which meant that I wasn't always able to think about university as my full-time priority, and I also had to work full-time to finance my life whilst doing so. One of the really big things that was a real issue for me in terms of coming from this different background was the fact that I wasn't dedicating my full-time hours to my degree. And often I then felt that my identity wasn't my degree. And my peers had that. They were able to be, I'm the engineering student, I'm the science student, I'm the English literature student. That was their identity. Whereas for me, my identity was wrapped up in being a carer, not having parents around, working full time. The degree felt so small. And the main thing I just want to reiterate is that that won't always be the case. There will be a time when you do land that job and it does become your full time thing. It's not always going to be in the background. And just because it's in the background at like one point in your life doesn't mean that that isn't a valid part of your identity and who you are and who you can be in the future. So, working in hospitality throughout my entire time during my undergraduate degree was potentially one of the best things I ever did. So I found it very, very easy to talk to anybody, which it's been super helpful in terms of talking to colleagues, talking to people on recruitment panels, talking to collaborators. It made it so much easier to talk to people, and just about chit chat as well. A lot of people sometimes the only things they can talk about are the technical aspects of their work. Whereas when you've worked in things like hospitality and customer service, you're able to engage people in that chit chat so you can build rapport with people. And then they're more likely to actually help you out in those technical things that you need at the beginning of your career. So, hospitality, the best. I found recruitment processes quite easy because I was so used to talking to people through my hospitality work. However, it was still very kind of daunting because I wasn't used to the setup and the formalities involved. So I think personally, I found a ton of benefits coming from non-traditional background because it meant that my experiences set me apart from my peers because I had all these non-traditional things that had happened to me. So I had to go out and have non-traditional responses to them, which meant that when I was then in scenarios where I had to sell myself, I had these weird and wacky, wonderful things that I'd done, which took people by surprise because they don't expect undergraduates and potentially postgraduates to have been through these life experiences that give you more examples for your interview questions, and also make you stand out because recruiters are seeing so many people when they're doing these sessions or interviews, and if you're the person that comes in and you have this wacky wonderful thing you did, you're just more memorable. So I found it beneficial. I was asked in my job interview for this position, name a time when you've worked on a project and how did you plan the project and what was the end of the project. And most people would have chosen their undergraduate thesis, and I could have done. I did one, I did very well in it, I could have used it. But I decided to go in a different tactic and actually spoke about getting a cat. So, because I am estranged from my parents and I live on my own and I don't have any family, when lockdown hit, it was really lonely. So the way that I went about this was I got myself a pet. And I turned the answer for this question into about how getting the pet was a project to a problem that I had. And I had to look at the longevity of the project. Could I finance the project? I had to plan. I had to do all these things to do with getting the cat. And they now use that answer as a really good interview question example when they're doing training for recruitment. So I think it's great to use wacky examples. One of the main things I always used to speak about in my recruitment interviews was when I used to manage a cocktail bar. And I only managed this because I was working full time as a supervisor. They sacked the manager and then just presumed I would pick up the role of managing the bar. So I was managing this bar full time whilst trying to do my undergraduate degree. So when people ask me, name a time when you've had to problem solve or a time when you've had to uh, tell somebody else what you thought about their work, I don't just have those examples of working in a project at university or when I was in a society team. I bring out the big guns when I manage this cocktail bar alongside my degree, and you've instantly got people's attention. So that's one of the main ones that I definitely use all the time. So, in terms of my current job at the moment, one of the hindrances, which also turns into a benefit, is the fact that because you don't know how the hierarchy works, you sometimes don't know the right way to go about approaching people, the way to word emails that's politically correct. So sometimes you step out of line because you're just not, no one's ever told you the way to interact with these certain levels of seniority. But then on the flip side, it kind of can be really great because you're not scared to go and ask a certain someone a certain thing because you're not intimidated by their rank. So it works both ways, but it is very different from your peers not knowing how the hierarchy operates in the workplace sometimes. In terms of settling into a new work environment, I would say one of the best things you can do is just think about building your personal brand. So sometimes when you've come from these backgrounds, you don't have a network. Nobody knows who you are. You're just some kid from some uni. And it's up to you when you get into your job to be able to build that brand and to be able to sell yourself. And the way you do that is by talking to people, putting yourself out there, taking all the opportunities that you can handle with your workload. That's definitely the main thing I would suggest when you first go into a job.